Welcome to We the Fandom, where we believe in life, liberty, and the pursuit of escapism. If that's what you believe in, then consider subscribing to the channel. Today, I wanted to talk about mantles. Are they important? And what does it mean to pass a mantle down to the next generation of hero? To be clear, the term mantle in comic books refers to the identity or superhero persona that a character takes on. This can occur when a hero passes on their name, title, or powers to another character who then assumes the mantle and becomes the new incarnation of that hero. For example, in the Batman comics, Bruce Wayne is the original Dark Knight, but when he is temporarily unavailable to serve as Batman, other characters such as Dick Grayson, John Paul Valley, and Terry McGinnis have all taken on the mantle of the Batman, each with their own unique interpretation of the role. My personal belief is that whether or not you cheapen the mantle, what matters is the man or woman behind it. Thor is often referred to as a mantle these days, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Thor is the name of the son of Odin, and his identity is deeply rooted in Norse mythology. The idea that Thor is a mantle is a common misconception perpetuated by some comic book writers. But let's talk about the concept of superhero mantles. Some people argue that characters like Thor and Captain America are mantles that anyone can take on. But where's the logic in that? While new characters may assume these roles, the essence of these heroes is tied to the original character and their unique attributes in history. Simply adopting the name and costume of a hero does not make someone that hero. In the case of Thor, some writers like Jason Aaron have tried to introduce new elements to the character's mythology. While his God Butcher story and Jane Foster's tenure as Thor were well received, other events like the War of the Realms and Aaron's current Avengers run left something to be desired. Despite these variations, Thor's legacy as a hero and his connection to Norse mythology remain a fundamental aspect of his character. The current debate surrounding Thor is centered on whether or not his name can be considered a mantle that anyone could take on. It's important to note that prior to 2014, Thor was always known as a character with a specific identity, the son of Odin. Jason Aaron's decision to make Jane Foster Thor led to a significant shift in this concept, as suddenly Thor became a mantle that could be passed on to anyone, similar to Captain America or Batman. While Aaron may have had creative control over the storyline, his decision was met with backlash from fans who felt that it was a deviation from the established continuity. Unfortunately, in response to this backlash, Aaron doubled down on his decision and even incorporated fan criticism into the storyline itself, turning detractors into villains. While his decision to make Mjolnir a sentient storm was a relatively minor change, the choice to turn Thor's name into a costume was seen by many as a step too far. Despite the relative success of his previous works, Aaron's decision to take such liberties with the character was seen by many as a move based more on arrogance than creativity. It is quite perplexing how some fans have come to the conclusion that Thor is a mantle. They often cherry-pick evidence from Marvel's history, citing other characters like Beta Ray Bill, Captain America, and even an inverted Loki who were worthy of Mjolnir at some point. But let's analyze Mjolnir's enchantment. Whosoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor. It's a simple and straightforward statement that has been a topic of speculation for decades. What qualities does one need to possess to be worthy of Mjolnir? Courage? Bravery? Integrity? The vague nature of the enchantment has left fans with many questions. Despite this, some fans of Jane Foster believe that the enchantment's vague nature means that just about anyone could be worthy, but that's just wishful thinking. The reality is that Jason Aaron changed the enchantment to she, and later they, and allowed Jane Foster to take on the role of Thor, which was a questionable move. It seems that Aaron's justification for this change was that Thor had taken his power and role as a protector of the Nine Realms for granted, while Jane Foster, who was battling cancer at the time, wanted to live life to the fullest. But that explanation doesn't hold up to scrutiny. Moreover, changing Thor's name from a character's name to a mantle was an unwise decision that could damage the character's legacy. It's hard to imagine how someone could come up with such a lack of logic, and yet here we are. Ultimately, while Jason Aaron had complete creative control as the writer, he could have backed up his retcon with logic grounded in Marvel's continuity to make it more acceptable to the fans. The enchantment on Mjolnir, whosoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor, was not created for just anyone to pick up and become Thor. It was created specifically for Thor Odin's son, and anyone who has picked up Mjolnir and gained the power of Thor did so because they were deemed worthy by the hammer itself, not because they met some specific set of qualifications. Now, some people like to bring up the Avengers 1 million BC story, where Odin is shown wielding Mjolnir before Thor was even born. But let's be real here. That story created more continuity errors than it solved. And who was the writer? Oh, that's right, Jason Aaron. But let's get back to the enchantment. Power of Thor does not mean that Thor is a mantle that anyone could take on. Thor is the name of the character, plain and simple. It's not a code name or a mantle like Captain America. And let's not forget that Odin himself named his son Thor, so there's no question about who the enchantment was meant for. So let's cut through all the crazy theories and just stick to the facts. Mjolnir was created for Thor and Thor alone, and anyone who wields it and gains the power of Thor does so because they are worthy, not because they are taking on a mantle. Odin's naming of his son Thor is significant. It's not just a code name or a mantle like other heroes. Before Jason Aaron's retcon, Mjolnir's origins were clear. Made by dwarves, imbued with a storm by Odin, and placed on a pedestal waiting for the day Thor would prove his worthiness. However, I think many people misunderstand the enchantment. In my opinion, Odin did not assign specific qualities to the worthiness enchantment. Instead, he had a clear idea of the man he wanted his son to be and trained him to become that man. I would argue that despite their strained relationship, Thor does eventually fulfill Odin's expectations and becomes exactly the man his father wanted him to be, thereby fulfilling the enchantment. Therefore, the enchantment was never intended for anyone else, and it was not based on anyone else meeting Odin's approval because no one else could be precisely the man Odin raised his son to be. Again, this is just my theory based on the story that has been told. Let me break it down for you. Thor is the only one meant to wield Mjolnir, period. But then, as we know, Beta Ray Bill came along and he did the unthinkable by picking up the hammer. And no, it's not because Bill was very protective of his people or because he was a great warrior. It all goes back to Odin's vision of the man he wanted his son to be. Someone who was strong, honorable, and selfless, but more importantly, wanting Thor to be strong, honorable, and selfless. Thor had the benefit of being raised and trained by Odin to fit this mold. But Bill was an unknown entity. When Bill picked up Mjolnir, Odin was surprised and had them fight for it to see if Bill was a true kindred spirit to Thor. Turns out he was, and Odin gave him Stormbreaker as a reward. But let's not forget, Mjolnir was always and only meant for Thor. Anytime it was taken away, it was because Thor stopped living up to his father's expectations. Again, this is just my theory, but I stand by it. Thor is Thor, Jane Foster is Jane Foster, and Beta Ray Bill is Beta Ray Bill. If you have any objections, feel free to share them in the comments. So let's get back to the point about mantles. Mantles may seem important, but they really aren't. It's the person underneath the suit that truly matters. Take Captain America, for example. He's a bona fide legend, the hero's hero of the Marvel Universe. Despite lacking superhuman abilities, Cap is akin to Superman in that he serves as the inspiration for countless other heroes, even though Namor and the Human Torch technically came first in Marvel's history. In recent Marvel comics, Sam Wilson, formerly known as Falcon, has taken on the mantle of Captain America, relinquished it, and then reclaimed it. As for Steve Rogers, he currently still holds the title of Captain America, and this time he is not a secret agent of Hydra. But this isn't the first time someone else has taken on the role of Cap. Before Sam, we had Bucky, John Walker, William Burnside, Jeffrey Mace, and William Naslund, who have all worn the red, white, and blue. Some of them got complaints, but these three, people weren't even aware of them until a retcon was made to explain how Cap was frozen in ice for 20 years, even though there had been Captain America comics published in the mid-50s. So don't even try to pull the race card on why Sam Wilson isn't being accepted as Cap by everyone. The truth is, people have always complained about Cap replacements regardless of race. Let me tell you, Sam Wilson wasn't the only one who had a hard time filling Steve Rogers' shoes. When Sam Wilson took up the mantle of Captain America, some fans weren't too thrilled about it. But here's the thing, they weren't complaining because he was black, they were complaining because he wasn't Steve Rogers. Though the response from some Marvel creators and certain fans was way out of line. They started throwing around baseless accusations of racism, even though they were making the same complaints about John Walker and Bucky, who both happen to be white. It's ridiculous. Sam Wilson should be judged on his merits as a hero, not the color of his skin. And let's not forget, Sam didn't ask for special treatment because of his race. He just wanted to do the job and do it well. In the case of Captain America, some fans have argued that the mantle of Cap is not tied to any particular person, but rather is a symbol that anyone could take on. And I must say, I agree with this argument. Unlike with Thor, there's no notion that just anyone can be Steve Rogers, the original Cap. But on the flip side of this argument, what some people fail to realize is that those who support race and gender swapping of characters or changing up the mantles are essentially treating them as entitlements to be shared around. Companies like Marvel and DC want to prove how tolerant and progressive they are by giving the black guy the Captain America mantle. But in doing so, they have devalued the very thing they claim to hold in high esteem. They see mantles, code names, costumes, weapons, and even the names of certain characters as holding superficial value. And honestly, sometimes I see it that way too. And so in this case, it's important to ask, who, or rather what, is Captain America? Well, he's more than just a costume or a mantle. He's a symbol of patriotism, liberty, and doing what's right. Now, while these values are important, they alone don't make someone Captain America. I believe Steve Rogers embodies these values in a way that no one else can. He has a unique personality and beliefs that are inseparable from the importance of Captain America. Even the Red Skull, who went as far as cloning Steve's body and transferring his own mind into it, couldn't truly be Steve Rogers. He lacked the essence of the character, the intangible qualities that make him who he is. So, what are Steve's beliefs? Well, they are his own, shaped by his experiences and convictions just like anyone else. They are what make him to many the one and only Captain America. The essence of Captain America's beliefs can be boiled down to just two words: the dream. Not just any dream, but the American dream. Unfortunately, many of the current crop of uninformed Captain America writers have missed the mark entirely, substituting their own misguided notions of the American dream for Steve's true vision. They seem to think that a little house with a white picket fence, a happy family, and some financial security is all it takes to capture the essence of the American dream, and that it's only a dream that's available to the privileged. But they couldn't be more wrong. Steve's idea of the American dream has never been a reflection of the times or the fads of the moment. Rather, it's a deeply held personal belief, an ideal that may seem lofty to some, but is always worth fighting for. And if these misguided writers would take the time to read some of the earlier comics, they might actually get a glimpse of what Steve really meant when he spoke of the American dream. Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes are both undoubtedly great heroes, having served alongside Captain America for years. However, taking on the mantle of Captain America means trying to live up to Steve Rogers' example, not becoming him. No matter how hard they try, they can never truly be Steve Rogers. The essence of Captain America lies in the meaning that Steve Rogers gave to it, not in the symbol itself. At the end of the day, it is the man or woman behind the mask that matters. To argue that anyone can take on a mantle and do justice to it is to miss the point entirely. Such an approach only serves to cheapen the mantle over time. The objective should not be to have someone pretend to be someone else, but rather to elevate that character into their own inspiring and unique person. Passing on a mantle should be about inspiring a new generation of heroes to fight for what they believe in, not merely replicating someone else's identity. The goal, then, should be to make Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes their own inspiring heroes, not mere carbon copies of Steve Rogers. The same principle applies to every other hero who has taken on a new mantle. Only by doing so can we honor the legacy of the original heroes while still giving new generations of readers characters they can truly call their own. Remember, the character, not the costume, is where the true value lies in the stories told by Marvel and DC, a critical reminder that cannot be overlooked.